the reality is that AI in healthcare has been around for 70 years. We were kind of going along the last 70 years and things were happening in the background and we suddenly got to this destination. So we're going to go back in time to the 60s. I know no one was born in the 60s. I was 1972. Yes, that was a great year. So this is the first AI. It actually came out of Stanford, and they were using it to identify different organic molecules, which was interesting. And then one of the next things that Stanford was doing is saying, okay, well, if we can use this to identify different molecules, what else can we do with it? And so they were kind of going along behind the scenes. Now I want to get to the fun decade, the 80s. So back in the 1980s, this was, especially for our physicians in the room, there was, coming out of the East Coast, there was a lot of innovation in how do we use machine learning and to be able to take this large amounts of data and to be able to read it. And so there was a program that came out called Internist, and it was a decision support system. So we call this human in the loop AI. And if you're taking notes, so what that means is that the machine is making a recommendation, but the human is coming alongside to assist with that recommendation. And I am a big believer that humans need to remain in the loop with AI. That's the bottom line. We are the guardrails. So I want to take you back to me in the 80s and 90s for a minute. All right? Sound good? We'll go a little. Someone mentioned hair. So in the 1980s, the guy on the top, no, not from Zoolander. This is my husband. So my husband, Chris, and I, we grew up in a very small town in Canada on the Canada-US border called Brockville, Ontario. Some of you know where that is. And I loved him in high school. We grew up 2 miles apart. Our love story didn't begin then. It happened later on. We re-met in my original hometown of Toronto. But the reason I share this photo is the typewriter. How many of you remember the typewriter? So my dad, I know some of you all are like, what is that thing? Just needs to hold up his BlackBerry because I almost had a fangirl moment. I still have my old BlackBerry. So my dad said to me, I was raised by a single dad. His name is Joe. And my dad said to me, Susan, you need to take typing. And I'm like, Daddy, why? I'm not going to be a secretary. We didn't say executive assistant. And that was, deliberate. And I said, but I'm not going to take typing. And he said, Susan, someday everyone is going to have a computer and you will need to know how to type and it will give you a distinct advantage. And me being me, I decided I was going to become really good at typing. So 128 words a minute, that's where I got to. And now I can still do, just do it, right? So in the 90s, I went to university and I worked on early facial recognition algorithms, and I was coding, and we were quantifying crime scenes to help catch serial sex offenders and building out early algorithms. But I wanted to talk about my dad for a moment. So my dad was a visionary. He was an engineer. He worked on, when the first Top Gun movie came out, we went to see it in the theater, and he said, see those planes, the F-14s? I helped design those engines. My dad helped work on the pacemaker. People would stop us and thank him in tears for saving their lives. And so my dad said to me, he liked to brainwash me. So when I was young, he was like, one day you could go to MIT. So I go off to university, do my undergrad, and I had to call him, so ashamed, because I failed first year calculus. Guess what? MIT doesn't like it when you fail first year calculus. But to make a long story short, when I graduated from MIT the first time, I got to buy him the sweatshirt. I bring him into every speaking event I do as it relates to healthcare, and you'll see in a moment why. In 2000s, we had this data explosion. And so people are going, okay, in healthcare, we now have all of these, electronic health records and insurance data. What are we going to do with it? And that's where the AI really began to take form, and deep learning, starting to identify, imaging and have humans and different physicians read the medical imaging, and they found that when a human did it versus a machine, both had a high degree of inaccuracy, but when you put them together, it was single digits. And that has saved so many lives. Robotics. Now, here we are in 2020, and we have AI maturity. And so I'll share with you some of the things that are happening. So we have AI-driven diagnostics, which I know that many of you are working with. We have patient records using natural language processing. We have drug discovery. So one of the studies that I had the privilege to do a case study on was during the pandemic, the two vaccines, how were they created? The J&J, so Janssen vaccine versus the Moderna and so forth. And it was really interesting because they all used AI to create the vaccines really quickly, but they used different data sets, which was fascinating. And then looking at telemedicine, virtual health assistants, and then, now we have all these AI ethics and regulations.